Oh hey, I heard you like falconers, so I decided to take this opportunity to make a brand new falconer build to show off to all you people here. So if you're wondering what this is all about, basically I made a falconer build, and you can check it out in my last videos, about making a character that was completely focused on the falconry tree. I wanted something that was going to go pure falconer, really kind of mess about and see what would happen if I made a character that used pretty much none of the class enhancements and was very, very focused on just the falconry tree. One of the reasons why I went with this is because I wanted to see how strong it really was. Turns out it's not that great. You can make a couple interesting falconer type characters, but yeah, they're not super amazing. So I figured, all right, so falconry is something that is kind of left to being an interesting and fun choice, but not really anything that's good. Nothing I would really recommend as being competitive or end game viable. So I thought, all right, so that's not what falconer is about. So how does falconer feel when you splash? So I decided to make a wisdom-based barbarian to see what I could do with the falconer. Now you might say, oh, well, Strim Tom, obviously monk is the best. Why didn't you play monk? Monk is obviously so good. Because the answer is right there before your face, obviously. We all know monk is really good with falconry. When the falconry tree came out, most monk players swapped into the falconry, changed up their stats so they didn't prioritize intelligence for using with the Harper agent tree for know the angles, and instead would go into falconry to pick up deadly instinct to get 1.5 times their wisdom modifier as bonus on their tactical DCs as well as their damage, and getting their wisdom hit and damage. So it pretty much bumped up a lot of monk builds by like 15 to 20% on their damage threshold, because the falconry tree is very, very similar to the ninja spy tree, but it's just more efficient. It gives you better attacks. So I already know that the monk is really good. We all know that. Instead, I wanted to try out something different. So I tried Barbarian. Barbarian was pretty cool. It had a lot of really interesting synergies that I didn't really consider when I started playing it, but it really panned out. It was slow to level, I will say that. When it first started, it was a bit slow, but it really starts to pick up. I used a couple of things. To start, the Azamar gets a lot of benefit from being wisdom-based, since Healing Hands is very, very powerful. It essentially is able to heal me to full health every single time I use it, even in Reaper mode, thanks to all the healing amplification I get from Azamar, as well as from the Occult Slayer tree, and from Falconry itself. So that was really, really powerful. Barbarians just get a lot of health, and being able to heal for your entire health bar at once makes you very, very durable in Reaper mode. I mean, sure, if you happen to have maybe 200 or 300 health to start, you start to run into some problems when monsters can kill you in 2 or 3 hits. But when you say, oh, I have like 600, 700, 800, it gives you a lot more longevity, and when you can bump that back up to full, it's very, very useful. Now, the Occult Slayer itself, I decided to use because Occult Slayer recently got updated, get some cool new tools, bonus critical threat range and multiplier, changing the actual economy of how weapon bond is built up and used. So I said, okay, let's try this out and see how it works. The DR changes haven't come through yet, so I'm kind of playing it without the DR changes at the moment. And then, of course, with Falconry. Now, the weird synergy that you get is that the Falconry, it doesn't really feel that great, I'm going to be totally honest, until level 12. Before level 12, you feel like you're playing a bad Barbarian. Frenzy Berserker is really good because it allows you to have the ability Blood Tribute to gain an extra 150 temporary health, and that's really, really useful while you're leveling for the only cost of 1 Constitution. Well, my character instead was going up the Occult Slayer tree and didn't have access to that. On top of that, because you're not using Ravager or Frenzy Berserker, you're not really picking up a lot of damage out of the Barbarian tree. Most of the damage that you're going to be picking up is coming out of, well, Falconry, Azamar, and you get a lot of tanky stats. So you're relatively durable, and you don't take a lot of damage, but you don't really do a lot of damage. All that flips on its head once you hit level 12, though. You get access to the good stuff out of Occult Slayer, the critical threat range multiplier, the extra damage, the self-healing, and you really start to churn it out. And then as you start to put more points in, picking up the Ascendant Bond out of Azamar, picking up the Deadly Instincts out of the Falconry tree, your damage really starts to ramp up, and it feels really, really good. As you can see, I'm sure in the clips that you're watching behind you, that my character is able to run into pretty much whatever and not really care about the consequences. Sure, I might take a lot of damage, but being able to burst myself back up to full health, now that I've hit level 17 with this character at the moment, it is just so much fun to any of my healing buttons, Healing Hands, or One Spirit automatically bumps me back up to full health, which is just super useful. And with 7 Healing Hands, that means monsters have to be able to cut through 7,000 hit points before I actually die, and that's pretty difficult for most monsters to do before I get to a shrine, considering how tanky I am. This character is going to be going all the way up to level 30, and I really want to see how it goes, but so far, it's been a heap and help and a fun. During the low levels, you're just playing Barbarian, which is, of course, already strong. Now, granted, like I said, it doesn't feel as good as Barbarian does in the other types, but it does really, really ramp up at 12, and then from 12 so far all the way up to 17, it has been an absolute joy to play. So I've been having a lot of fun with it. The benefit of having Wisdom is that I have really high will saves. I can put all my save bonuses into Reflex, so my saves are high. My armor class is decently high because of the armor that I'm using. And then again, I'm very tanky with all the physical resistance rating out of Occult Slayer and magical resistance rating out of Occult Slayer. You'd be surprised how amazing it feels when you just have a lot of magical resistance rating while leveling. Anytime those Scorching Rays or Male Sastro effects come in, you kind of just reduce them pretty close to zero. It makes you a lot tankier. The real MVP of the show is, in fact, Ear Smash. A lot of people don't use Ear Smash, but it's really good. If you take the enhancement above Ear Smash Knockout, it actually knocks people completely to sleep, and it has essentially a stun with no save. Very, very useful. So I'm excited to see how this character is going to perform as we get all the way up to the level cap, because I'm really liking it. And I think this character could be a real contender to be an end game Reaper 10 farming type character for level 30. So here's the character in question. I really like the actual design of the armor here. So this is the Golden Executioner's plate that you can get from the Remnant vendor. I like it a lot. It really works with the character's kind of theme of being like this kind of very healing amp focused barbarian. It's pretty neato. I really like this hairstyle as well. I don't know. I like the aesthetic of my character. It feels really good. And man, that black razor is doing work as a cosmetic, so I like it a lot. But you probably want to see the build, so let's go into the build here. So I am level 17 Barbarian right now, Azamar. Wisdom is my main stat. I do end up having a lot of strength because when I happen to rage, which I do pretty often, it does bump me up to about 36. So I have a lot of strength just kicking around, but the most important stat is Wisdom. Gives me a lot of defensive bonuses, will save, fortitude, reflex. And while raging, I actually get a fair amount of physical and magical resistance rating. So I'm only level 17 and I almost have 100 as a barbarian. This character is probably going to cap out somewhere around 250 physical and about 150 magical. 150 magical resistance rating is really good for a non-tank type character. So this character is going to be pretty durable when it comes to surviving. So the way I've actually built this character up is, of course, regular skills. I use Intimidate a lot, so make sure you take Intimidate. I've got Jump. I'm probably going to stop putting points in Jump soon. I'm using Listen because almost nobody uses Listen, but I get my Wisdom mod, so now it's 50. I can listen to anything. Got lots of Swim, use Measure Device for scrolls, what have you. The actual feats that I decided to go with, simple stuff, started with Power Attack, then picked up Cleave. Cleave is obviously amazing. I went Completionist because I have access to Completionist, and then I followed the two-handed fighting line as well as improved critical hits. That's kind of the way it goes. Most barbarians are going to go that same route. You don't really have any other feats you want to take. Now, when it comes to the actual enhancements, there's a couple things that really steal the show. I went Occult Slayer, Azamar, and Falconer. You want pretty much just the good stuff out of these trees. Out of Azamar, I don't really care about Divine Purpose too much. I don't really want to spend the extra points for the 5% double strike, so I just put 1 point in it, so it bumped me up a tier. But I want all the cores, I want the healing amp for sure, and then I want to pick up the Fight the Wicked, because you fight a lot of evil creatures, so +1 hit and damage actually does start to stack up surprisingly well. Ascendant Bond is obviously amazing. It gives 10 melee power and allows you to stack vulnerability, which means this character does not need to use Torn when I hit level 30. I'll probably end up using another weapon. I'm thinking the legendary Black Razor is probably going to be the weapon that I will choose. Now, of course, I went with Occult Slayer because I wanted to try out some of the new changes. This one right up here, Occult Metaline with a +1 competence bonus, critical threat range, and multiplier is really, really powerful on top of Metaline. I actually didn't even remember that this gave you Metaline. I thought it was just +1 competence bonus to threat range and multiplier. But yeah, all my weapons can beat pretty much all damage reduction except for good. So I just need to make sure my weapon is good at all times, whether it's through an augmentation or have an artificer with me. And I'm pretty much set. I can beat all the DR in the game. There's a couple of things out of Occult Slayer that are very, very powerful. Ear Smash is one of the big ones. It kind of steals the show away. What it reads as is it's a stun, or sorry, it damages enemies and they can't cast spells for 6 seconds. Instead, you get this enhancement right here, Knockout, and it's an 18-second no-save stun. So if you ever play Occult Slayer, use this. Every 12 seconds, with no cost, you can stun a guy for 18 seconds. Works on anything that's not a red name. So very, very powerful. I highly recommend this. Of course, I also put points in Guarding Bond for the extra defenses. I'm using Driving Force now. It's been changed. So now it costs you 10 weapon bond to gain 10 melee power and 20 magical resistance rating. You pretty much keep this up almost 100% of the time. You're going to be pressing it on cooldown. It's really good. Picking up Wisdom, and then One Spirit. One Spirit's actually doing a lot better than I thought it was going to. I mean, I'm not in Reaper mode right now, but when I actually have all my melee power from Raging and everything else, I can One Spirit myself for 1500, which is obviously very, very good. It scales with your melee power, and it scales with all my healing amplification. So it's a surprisingly good heal, and you get weapon bond fairly fast now. So it's good. I like that. Now, in the Falconry tree, I'm going to be taking Deadly Instinct. I'm also going to be taking No Mercy, and if I have enough points left, I will take Coordinated Strikes or Exposed Weakness. I'm not sure. I don't know how many points I'm actually going to have left in the tree. I don't want this Vistanian Knife Fighter. Get out of here. I was using it on a stream. Now, the path to actually do the leveling on this character does not work if you don't have racial enhancement points, by the way. It needs racial enhancement points to work. I think you need at least 4, maybe you need 3. You could probably get away with 3, but I don't recommend it to the way the split's going to work. I started this character by going Occult Slayer. I picked up Extended Rage as well as 1 point in Ear Smash and 1 point in Knockout. This means by doing just this and having these points here, when you hit level 2, you can jump right into Reaper mode, and as long as you have a way to hit Reapers through Incorporeality, you can Ear Smash every Reaper you run into and kill them within that 6-second window. It's very useful and pretty much means this character is never going to have any issues in Reaper mode. Plague Reaper runs up to you, Ear Smash, and then you just start killing it real quick. Once I got that, because my character was wisdom-based and not strength-based, I wanted to go into Falconry as quickly as I could to pick up Killer Instinct. Once I had that, I then started spending more points in the Occult Slayer tree, picked up all the beautiful stuff at the top here, and once I had all of that, that's when I focused more into the Aasimar tree and picked up the rest of the stuff that I am picking up here in Aasimar. Falconry, of course, I'm leaving for last. The extra Deadly Instinct, because it adds 1/2 your wisdom to your modifier, to your 1/2 your wisdom modifier to your damage. My wisdom modifier is not as high as it could be. In Reaper mode, it gets bumped up to 22. So it's going to give me an extra 11 points of damage. While that is good to have an extra 11 points of damage, when I have 90 wisdom when I'm level 30, it's going to be much more potent. So I don't really want to take this for the lower levels. It's more potent when you're at higher levels and you have a higher plus. As far as any essential items or equipment, like I said, I've been using a couple different weapons. The weapon that's been doing the best for me has been Sword of Shadow. Because of the +1 critical threat range and multiplier, this becomes a 14 to 20 times 4 weapon. So decently powerful. I crit a lot. I crit pretty damn hard with this character. A couple items that really steal the show as well. There's Memories of Kindness that you get from the new library quest. I can't remember what it's called, but the one where you got to help the guy fix his speech in the 12. Wisdom, Insightful Sheltering, and Quality Sheltering, and True Seeing. This is pretty much a must-have item. Mine just also happens to have Mythic 3. So this is adding an extra 11 physical and magical resistance rating. So good. And wisdom. For a character like this, you can't go wrong with this item. On top of that, another good new item is precision lenses. I'm beginning to use this on pretty much every melee life that I use. Extra action boosts are always good. The 6% attack speed is always good. The Manslayer doesn't come up too often, but Insightful Strength, you might end up using that. And then outside of that, those are pretty much my weapons. For the purposes of leveling, I actually just used this weapon right here. I used a Vorpal Falchion. So I used a Vorpal Falchion until 10, and then at 10 I swapped out for the Sword of Shadow. I also liked using the Echo of Black Razor. Very, very good weapon. The nice thing about it is it's actually a crystal weapon, so it's great for beating oozes. So this is a good one for leveling as well. I do recommend it. So it's a lot of fun. Overall, this character has been pretty fantastic. Really easily leveling. Really good experience. I'm going to be taking this guy all the way up to level 30 and testing it out. Going to try to do some Reaper 10s, so we'll see exactly how that works. Hopefully it'll be really good. Anyways, guys, that is all. If you have any questions, do leave some comments down below, and you'll be getting another update from me in a little bit when I have the full scope on how this character is going to land and really how Falconry can help enhance it. I also am going to try to do a comparison to regular Barbarian to see, okay, this is how good this character is, how good is a regular Barbarian, and what are the key differences between the two characters, what are the pros and cons of each, so you'll see that later. Anyways, with that being said, I will leave you guys to it. See ya!